This is the basements. That's our new. Welcome to the basements. We're the new podcast that's just all about having a deep voice.
Yeah, it's all about kinky sex in your basement.
And when we talk about kinky things, we go down to this kind of voice.
Everyone's what is this thing?
What's happening? What have I clicked on? Is this the right podcast? I don't know where I'm at.
Back.
And anybody who was first episode just tuning in was like, whoa.
Wow.
I'm in the wrong place. How does this podcast have 4.8 stars?
2 Minnesota women were talking about having sex in the basement. I tie Joey up every Tuesday. I get out my leather. My strap
only every
on.
Tuesday. I just make Frankie stays down there 24/7. He's in
I gotta let him up. He's gotta work for the family.
Frankie's in his crib and he doesn't leave.
Well, that's what I have Marvin for. I keep him down in the cage. You know that. Okay.
So welcome to Your Queer Story. We are the podcast that inspires peace, love, and radicalism.
And I am Evan Jones.
And I'm Paul Hobbs.
You didn't introduce yourself last time.
They don't need me to know. They already know.
They need to know, Paul. We need to tell people if we want to continue building our podcast.
It's in the title.
It's in the title. Whatever. What if we died? Then they would never know that somebody else had taken over the podcast.
That's true.
So
I think they would know. I hope that you are a deep enough listener and you love us so much that if one of our voices was different, you would know and you would call the police immediately because then something's really gone wrong.
If you consistently hear that someone else has taken over our podcast without a reason why, then call the police because we have been kidnapped.
Oh my God. So speaking of this,
okay.
I have a friend who was a coworker that at my current company, and she quit, but I stay in contact with her. Like we just, not like deep conversations, but we send each other funny pictures and stuff on Instagram.
Yeah.
And she didn't respond for a day and a half. She didn't post a story for a day and a half. She didn't post a status. Like she hadn't been on Facebook. And this girl like lives on social media.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, what's going on? So then I asked like my friends at work, I'm like, hey, has anybody heard from this person? They're like, no, she just must be really busy. And I was like, okay. So then I call her on my way home and it goes straight to voicemail.
Uh-oh.
And I instantly was like, nope. I almost turned the car around, drove straight to where she lives. I'm like, I left her voicemail. I'm like, if you don't respond in 3 hours, I'm calling the police and filing a missing persons report. I messaged her on all her social media, like, answer me right now. And then
Crazy
she finally
stalker. Go ahead.
And then she finally got back to me. She's like, sorry, I've been in bed with the flu. I haven't even like done anything. And I was like, okay, thank you. I thought you were finally in that acid barrel on the side of the road. Thank you for letting me know you're alive still.
He's halfway through filling out the police report. And he's like, okay, well, it seems like she just has the flu. Officer like, sir, I don't like this.
If I am in contact with you and you just disappear off the face of the earth. I had a friend from London who was staying with this guy in Canada who I have never met. And she didn't respond for a day and a half, and I was like, I'm about to call the Canadian police. You need to answer me right now.
A day and a half. They're grown-ass adults.
A lot can happen in a day and a half. If you respond to me every day within like 30 minutes, and then suddenly you go a day and a half without anything, I'm sorry, I'm looking out for you. If you did that, I'd be like knocking on your door. I'd be like, Samantha, what did you do with Evan's body?
Have you been friends with Katie? Katie, friend Katie.
The difference is Katie doesn't, I don't stay in constant contact with her. Like with you, I talk to you every day.
Yeah.
With these people, I talk to them every day. So suddenly when they just disappear off the face of the earth, you better believe I'm freak out. I listen to true crime 8 hours a day.
I know. Well,
so that's step one. They didn't respond.
That's why, okay, so like, I am not a person I'm like people will respond when they respond. So hopefully you never disappear because it'll be like a week and I'm like, Paul hasn't reached out to me about the podcast. This is weird. We actually talk pretty frequently. So, but like Katie is one of those people that won't respond to text, and then you'll text her later and be like, Katie, and then finally she'll respond. And so it makes Samantha so anxious, especially when we were living with Katie. She'd be like, well, do you know where she's at? Who's she staying with? Do we have any information? And I'm like, it's been 3 hours. She's a grown-ass fucking adult.
I basically live in a constant state of anxiety where somebody's going to get kidnapped or something or murdered. So if somebody doesn't respond to me, I'm like, what's going on? It's been 15 minutes.
So if you're a psychopath out there, good luck trying to kidnap one of Paul's friends.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get caught real quick.
He's gonna be all over your ass, hacking social media accounts and everything.
I will. I'll be like logging into their account. Like, all right, who was the last person they messaged?
I put trackers on all my friends' phones just in case.
There's a little GPS tracker at the bottom of all their cars, just in case. You never know.
Just gotta keep an eye on them. You're gonna be really fun as a parent. I can tell you that.
They're just gonna be microchipped.
They are. You absolutely know they are. That's fine.
A little little one of those little squares or whatever they are, if you lost your keys or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And like their backpack
Every
and
one
all
of their
their
backpacks.
sewn into their pockets.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind the microchip thing if I wasn't if it wasn't the government. Like there are parents that microchip their babies now. They do that. And I get the fear behind that, but I'm like, but that kid's going to grow up and then the government's going to be able to know where they are at all times, even though they mostly can from our phones. But at least I can throw my phone in the water whenever I'm fleeing the government one day. But microchip, no. See, yeah, that's too much for me. I'm not going there.
David actually was like, we should just be at the point where everybody's microchipped and they can monitor their health and everything. And I tried to explain to him like government corruption. He was like, well, the government shouldn't just be that way. And I'm like, okay, well, they are. I was like, that's not just going to change. He's like, we need to evolve past this. And I'm like, okay, but we're not.
But governments never have.
We just can't start doing that just because we should.
We're literally talking about like how Jews were registered.
Exactly.
Like last week and this week, we're talking about how Jews had to be registered. And like the government is never just gonna evolve past wanting to control its people. That's how it makes its money. That's how it keeps its power. They have to be able to control you to have that. So they're never gonna be like, you know what, guys, we've been wrong. Don't worry, we're not going to do anything. That's why they listen in on our phones. That's why they're constantly tapping into our videos.
David and I were having this conversation, I was like, what do you mean? It's just not going to that's just not how it works, hon. I'm sorry. I agree with you that we should be evolved past that and everybody could have this microchip to monitor their own health and safety and all this. Like if you could check your blood pressure from it, you know what I mean? Like just this health thing. However, we're just not there.
But there's a lot of other ways that you can do that. Like you can use your iPhone to track a lot of your
but
functions.
I mean, if you could imagine like a microchip could like monitor your iron in your blood, like it could like monitor
it's like buzzes you and you're like, you're low on iron.
Yeah.
You're about to have a heart attack. Sit down.
Exactly.
I mean, it would be amazing.
But however, that's not a place where we're at morally or ethically because of the fucking
because
government.
You know what else they'll do? They'll put in a self-destruct button and then
they absolutely
piss them
would.
Off, and then you drop dead. Okay.
Like, wow, this person just died of a random heart attack at the age of 19. I wonder what happened.
Wow, weird. They were really healthy, went to the gym every day, but they had a heart attack. That's so weird. It has nothing to do with the way they were speaking out against the government on social media.
Exactly.
Big Brother, folks. Read 1984 or just look around you.
Or just pay attention.
Just pay attention. Either one. So anyways, by the way, subscribe and like our podcast.
Yes. Leave a wonderful comment. The nice comments really uplift us. If you have a critical comment, message us first. But you're
definitely going to do that, Paul.
You're also welcome to post a critical comment
I
if
will
you think
say
that it's warranted.
Yes, of course we do criticism, but I will say we've had criticism in our podcast,
and we've always made up for it.
Yeah, we've always apologized,
it
addressed it. We want to learn, we want to grow. So if we do something that pisses you off, we only say reach out to us because we want to know what's wrong. And and then if you're still like, well, you guys have no fucking intention of fixing this, then fine. I mean, we're not going to be. It's not like we can escape criticism, but we do truly want to learn and grow. Like in this episode, we're going to talk about something that we said in our Pink Triangle episode. We called Romas or travelers a slur.
Yes.
And we didn't we were trying to refer to the Nazi way of things, of the way they referred to the people, but we apologize for that. And so we want to grow. You listen to our old podcasts, we have come very far. And so,
Oh, and my mom actually sent me something, but I'll let you know if it was
okay.
Proper or wrong.
Yeah, but as he's looking at that, just the point is that we want to change. We're not afraid to apologize. We're not afraid to admit that we're wrong. So if you reach out and you message us, we're happy to to address the issue. And if you just leave an angry review, it's hard for us to go further and see well, what was the issue, right? And to dive deeper.
So my mom said Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman came out in 1993 and not 1970. I don't know where you said this.
Wow.
I don't know where you saw. I don't know what that's referring to, but she told
me.
That
was on one of our episodes recently where I talked about how my first crush was Jane Seymour and Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, and I thought it was the 1970s.
Oh, 1993.
But it was 1993. Okay, well, I mean, I wasn't allowed to really watch TV. This was little clips that I caught at my aunt's house, and so all TV. It's I have no concept of. It took me a long time. Now I can decipher the time periods in television, but when I left the cult, I had no concept of what was
because
different.
everything you were allowed to watch was so limited that
exactly.
Everything looked like it was from a specific period, basically.
Anything that wasn't black and white Like, I literally had no idea because I didn't know what the styles were because our style was always the same.
Yep.
So I didn't know what the dress styles were. I didn't know what the music was. Any of the little clues that give you like, oh, this must have been made in the 80s. I couldn't decipher those things. That's what happens when you live under a rock.
That makes sense, yeah.
But I do appreciate the correction, and I really need to start looking up Dr. Quinn because I miss how Jane Seymour looked. Anyways,
So,
yeah. And then thank you to our patrons.
Yes, thank you for all of those who have been with us since the beginning, and thank you to everybody who's recently joined. We're working on building that, and we're almost to another goal. Mm-hmm. Once we get there, you get yet another funny YouTube video.
That's right.
Of Evan and I. I've got a few ideas.
Yeah.
I'll run a poll as usual, and then I'll pick which one I want at the end.
Yep. But our Patreon gets you it gets you first access to a lot of our stuff, and then there's a little weekly series that I do that it's just about topics and about navigating life as a young adult, and especially as a queer young adult, or even if you're a little older. So I talk about a bunch of different things. We will have an interview thing coming soon because I finally figured out how to record my FaceTimes.
Yeah.
So we do have an interview series coming soon, but that'll drop a lot less frequently. But yeah.
And every dollar you give goes to the podcast or the Queer Mentorship Program, and helps us grow and helps us continue the podcast.
Exactly. So are we ready to get into part 2?
You've been waiting for it. We left you on such a cliffhanger last time, and we've just been talking for 12 minutes, and you're like
when
shut
the
up.
Fuck.
I want to know about this I want to hear about this love story. I want to know why she gave her that apple and what she did with that apple.
Oh, you know what she did with that apple. Actually, I hope she did not do anything with that apple because that is so... I think I've said this a long time ago, but it used to be a custom back in the day where a woman would... she would shave an apple, and she would put it under her armpits, and she would work with the apple all day under her armpits. And then when her lover came, she would have the lover eat it because it had her pheromones inside, and it was supposed to be very erotic. So if you're into like sweat and stuff, maybe try it. I don't know.
If that's
Paul is very much not.
I have to have like clean. Everybody has to be showered, smelling like Dawn soap.
But you're not getting as many of the pheromones when you sweat.
I already get enough pheromones.
Oh, it's dirty and it's
no, I like clean.
Clean. Well, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, so maybe that's what she did with it, or maybe she just like framed it. I don't know.
Or maybe she just ate it on the way home.
Maybe she threw it in the garbage.
She was like
a fucking apple.
It takes 4 hours to get anywhere because all these damn cars are so slow. I'm glad she gave me this apple. I have a little snack now.
Maybe. We're putting a lot. There's no more information about the apple. So if that's what you were hanging on for, we're going to disappoint you. But if you want to know more about Lilly and Felicia, then we might have some information. If you're like, oh, no apple, I'm out. Thanks.
I thought she was going to make a nice apple pie with it.
An apple strudel. Okay. So we're back with part 2 of our episode on Lilly Wust and Felice Schragenheim. Felice Schragenheim. Jesus. When we last left off, Lilly, a proud Nazi and wife of a German soldier, had just met Felicia, who was an undercover Jew and a resistance fighter against Hitler's evil regime. It was at the height of World War II in 1942, and Germany was winning. This gives me Star Wars vibes. I think it's because it's resistance fighter.
We need to like start with intro. Dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay. All right. Thousands of Jews had fled the country before the mass deportations to death camps began. It was in the middle of the chaos that Lilly and Felicia met at a lunch arranged by Lilly's maid, Ulla.
But real quick, can we pause and talk about how much of a badass Ulla is? Because if she had found out that she arranged a lunch, like intentionally, she would have been taken away too.
Everything that Ulla did, Ulla's family was harboring a Jew in their house. Ulla worked in the Jewish underground.
Oh, I know.
Like,
but then the fact that she even arranged this like lunch. Oh, like that's like next level. Like, yeah, she's a bad bitch. Oh, and now I'm gonna intentionally sit you across from the person. Like
exactly.
That's some badass bitch stuff.
Ulla is definitely a badass bitch. Felicia had gone on a dare to see if Lilly could really smell a Jew, as she had claimed to Ulla. So that's how this whole thing came about. You really need to listen to the last episode. But the young mother was far too smitten with the attractive woman sitting across from her. She couldn't shake her desire to see Felicia again and waited in anticipation for an opportunity to arise.
Now, do you know if there had been any previous signs of like her being bi or her being a lesbian in her life, or was this kind of just like
No, for Lilly, no. Felicia, yes, but for Lilly, no. There was like nothing. I mean, she got married. We don't know when she got married because she's about 29 at this time, and she's had 4 children.
So she had to at least gotten married at 25 or younger.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
Probably
So
around 23 or earlier, even 17.
And she said that she had been with several men before her husband.
Oh,
so
so
she says
she
that
was
in her
scandalous.
reel. Yeah, well, yeah, I guess she was sleeping around, but she.
Was that what time? No, 1940s, right?
This
Okay,
is
so it was a little.
So
it
this
was
is the 30s and 40s, so it's a little more
Yeah.
progressive, and especially Europe is not as strict. She does say that she never she never felt the same after that. So from what I'm pretty positive is Lilly identifies as a lesbian. She doesn't identify as bisexual, but she was a young woman. She was with men, and she always.
and that's all she had ever known, probably.
Exactly.
Until
She's
she
like,
met
it was
this woman
fine.
and
It was
like,
okay. Exactly.
"Oh."
And then she meets Felicia, and she's like, "Oh, what's happening to me?
Flood in my basement.
Flood in my basement."
A few weeks later, Lilly saw Felice picking Ula up from work.
Because remember, Ula works for Lilly.
Yep. She invited the young woman to dinner. In time, she invited Felice and Ula to bring more of the friends over for dinner parties. She's like, "Can you just bring her over? I just need to see her again. She gave me this really good apple, and I just want to give her an apple in
I just want to know
return."
where maybe she gets more apples, just gets her thoughts on them.
Thus began a very unique situation as Lilly, an ardent Hitler supporter whose own husband now fought for the German army, regularly hosted members of the Jewish underground in her home and didn't even know.
No clue.
It was late 1942 when Felice entered the picture, and Lilly's husband was too often able to return home from his position in Berlin. Typically, he was stationed 14 days on site and 14 days off on leave. That must be so inconvenient because you're spending at least a day traveling each way.
Exactly.
So you're like...
No, well, he's... Yeah, I guess, yeah, you're right. So, I mean, but it's not like the Germans were very accommodating for their soldiers.
Right, that's just like so... But like, I think it would make more sense to either have like a month on, a month off. I'm getting... too far into this.
Yeah.
And when he was home, he also enjoyed the company of Lilly's new friends. In fact, it was one evening as he sat in the parlor with Ula and a few other resistance fighters that Felice went into the kitchen to help Lilly. She brought her an apple. Felice had not been very coy in her open flirtations with Lilly. She regularly brought the young mother flowers and complimented her at every turn.
And perhaps Lilly's acceptance of Felicia's flirting is what prompted the brazen woman to take Lilly in her arms and attempt to kiss her. The timid wife quickly pushed Felicia away and told her, "Let's just be friends," to which Felicia conceded and apologized. But as her friends later recounted, Felicia was very shrewd. She knew when someone wanted her, and she knew how to play the game. She was also reckless enough to continue pursuing such a dangerous target. But taking a step back, Felicia respectfully kept her distance while still making her intentions known. I just want to pause because I saw an interview with a couple of her friends, and they talk about how Felicia just thrived on adrenaline, and so they think that that's what initially drew her. Like
It was
Lilly,
exciting.
Exactly, Lilly was smitten, and Felicia's like with this, like it's forbidden, and you're a Nazi, and if you knew who I was, you'd hate me. But
Right.
But like, it's like all these like why would you? Because you asked like why would you ever be attracted to someone who supports the death of your own people? But it was just like this, like that's how she lived. She lived constantly on edge.
And that's crazy because I hate adrenaline.
Yeah.
I hate like the way it makes me feel. I can't stand it. So thriving on it, like that must be why she was such a bad bitch. Because she was just
she had
going
to.
for it. Yeah.
You had to. Every single day, Felicia called Lilly, and the two women would talk endlessly on the phone. When Felicia was away on work, though she never told Lilly that the work was for the underground, she would write to her muse. One postcard read as such: "Dear and most gracious madam, I admit I am the most laziest of letter writers, but I mean to replace my daily phone calls with these postcards. Though the whispered nothings of phone calls don't translate too well onto paper. But I'll make up for that later. So what's new? Air raid warnings, trouble with Ula, various love entanglements? I want to know all about it. So I may send you my address tomorrow. Will you answer? I hope so. And I hope so for much else besides. Till then, my friendliest regards, your Felice."
And attached to it was an apple. No, that was a sweet letter. I did tell David one time that if we were ever separated, for an extended period of time, I'd write him a letter every day. Mm-hmm. So is that what she did, or she just like...
Yeah, that's what she did. Instead of calling her, because she couldn't call her from where she was at, she would just write her a postcard every single day.
See, that's nice.
Very cute.
Yet Felice never did send her address. She couldn't afford the risk, and at the same time, she couldn't bring herself to walk away from Lilly. On March 18, 1943, Lilly went into the hospital for an operation. She was still in the hospital 3 days later when Felice returned from one of her missions and went to see her. Upon entering the room, Felice once again took Lilly in her arms, and this time Lilly says, "I didn't resist." They shared their first kiss and professed their love for one another. Felice visited every day and stayed with Lilly as much as possible until her release on April 2nd. So, a couple weeks.
About 2 weeks.
That evening, the two women had a secret wedding ceremony.
Don't make the...
Felicia's vows read, "I will always love you. I will never leave you. I will do everything to make you happy. As far as circumstances permit, I will take care of you and the children. I will not prevent you looking after me. I won't look at pretty girls anymore except to prove that you are prettier. I will very rarely come home late. I will try to grind my teeth quietly at night. I will always love you."
Oh.
And
And then Whitney sang. So, I mean, it was 2 weeks after they professed their love, but they had several months of a friendship.
Well, yeah,
they
and
knew
then,
each other.
And then if, like, for example, David and I have been watching Downton Abbey, and like these people get married after knowing each other a month because that's what you do.
Exactly.
Like you meet, you get married, and then you have the relationship.
Yeah, and also, and then you take in the time period, and like there's not, you don't know how much time you have, and I think it doesn't really say, but I'm sure Felicia pushed it like, bitch, no, really, I do not have a lot of time.
Right.
She still has not told Lilly that she's a Jew. No, there's none of that, but she's in love with her, and there's that conflict of like, I'm in love with you, but I mean, she must have seen something in Lilly, and that's what I mean, like. When you get past the facade of an individual and you get to know them, often, sometimes you will be disappointed. And sometimes you see you're a good person, you just really don't know.
You're ignorant on the issue.
You're ignorant. Yeah, exactly. They each pressed an imprint of their lips with lipstick on the back of their marriage contract.
That's cute.
Yeah. Lilly and Felice then spent their first night together. Decades later, Lilly would recall the evening. "I was very shy at first. It was all new to me. Not for her, of course. The second night, I wanted to love too. At one stroke, I was a different person. I felt free."
So that's a very transitional period for her.
Yes, exactly. It's a very eye-opening. I mean, I don't know. I remember, because like, I was married before, and I had only been with guys. Like, I knew I had crushes on girls, but I hadn't never been able to explore that. And I remember the first time a woman kissed me, and it was like, I had even come out before, but I was like, am I crazy? Why do I know that I'm attracted to women when I've never actually been with a woman?
Right.
And then she kissed me, and I was like, damn, I was right.
Well, see, for me, it was pretty similar because I dated girls in high school. I never did anything. I was like, no, I'm waiting till marriage.
That's always a good one.
It was. I was like, no, I'm waiting
right?
till marriage. Sorry.
Yeah.
But then, like, I remember the first time I was a guy, I was like, oh. It
Yeah.
was very, like, everything changed. Like, there's literally a flip that switches in your head, and it never goes back.
Exactly. Everything comes into focus. It makes sense, and you're like, oh, shit. I was like, even like with my transition, like when I finally like came out and like started using my name and pronouns, like it was like, and the testosterone, like everything went into focus. And I was like, yeah, like I was so unsure before. I was like, I must be crazy. Why am I doing this? And then I did it, and I was like, oh yeah, like this is it. This is
Right,
what
it
I
feels
thought.
right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Since Lilly's husband had been permanently stationed on the Hungarian border, Felice moved in as a caretaker. She could pass this off as Lilly was still recovering from surgery. Ulla and some of the others in the underground suspected a romance, though Felice never admitted such. This draws on the burden of intersecting identities. As a Jew, Felice was not safe to tell her lover about her race. As a lesbian, Felice was not safe to tell her friends about her orientation. Intersectionality, a theory comprised by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, is defined as such: the complex, cumulative way in which the effects of multiple forms of discrimination, such as racism, sexism, and classism, combine, overlap, or intersect, especially in the experiences of marginalized individuals or groups. As quoted, the theory specifically addresses those who are already in an oppressed state. They struggle with finding relief and resources because discrimination within their own worlds can cancel out their access to help, or makes it twice as hard for them to find aid on the outside.
Yeah, when we've talked about intersecting identities, and it's important to understand that it really talks about positions that already put you at a disadvantage or in oppression. So it's not like, well, I love yoga and I'm a Christian and I'm a writer, right? Like those are intersecting identities. That's not what we're talking about. Like, yes, technically, like you have these different identities that are part of you, but we're specifically talking about when your identities, each one of like, or parts of your identities cause you more oppression, right? So like Felicia, she's already a Jew in hiding and she can't tell this woman that she loves about that. And she can't even tell her friends, wow, I'm falling in love with this woman. Like none of that.
Right.
You know,
there's a double-sided coin there that like you can't break.
Right. It's like what we talk
part
about
of your identity.
Black trans women, right?
Right.
Like they already, they feel, they can't get help because there's already the racism against them. And then you have the prejudice and transphobia against them.
Right.
Right.
And then they often, in each community, you get the opposite.
You get pushback, right? Because you face racism from the queer community, and then you face transphobia from the Black community, and then on the outside, you face racism and transphobia.
Yeah,
Exactly. So, in addition to the fear of being outed, Felicia was also robbed of the comfort of sharing one's full life and story and history with another person. She couldn't tell Lilly about the pain she felt when she watched her grandmother board a train to the death camps. She couldn't talk about her sister Irene or even mention that she had a sister at all. Felicia had never had the chance to tell her friends about her amazing love story or to cry about how it may end when the war was over. Still, as she walked the narrow and dangerous tightrope of her life, Felicia did manage to find happiness. As the war progressed and things in Germany deteriorated, the two women explored the depths of love they had never known. But with the mounting uncertainty and danger in everyday life, Lilly became frustrated with Felicia's disappearances for work. She knew that her wife wasn't being honest, but she couldn't understand why. So one night, Lilly confronted Felicia and demanded to know the truth. Felicia dodged the question and tried to change the subject as always until Lilly gave her an ultimatum. Tell the truth or get out of the house.
Damn, it was one of those arguments. She was like, all right, listen here, bitch.
You just telling me that you're just getting up and leaving for 3 days and you're coming home and I'm supposed to be like, okay.
Right.
And Felicia's like, no, I'm just
really busy with work. Work's just keeping me very busy.
What do you mean? Yeah.
So Felice broke down and told Lilly that she was a Jew. As she recalled in the story years later, Lilly remembers how everything suddenly fell into place. Her beautiful Felicia finally made sense. The odd disappearances, constant alertness, the walls she had built up to keep others out, and Lilly realized the pain of her own hatred. That every time she threw an anti-Semitic remark or hailed Hitler, she thrust a dagger into her own lover's heart. She saw how her prejudiced thinking had allowed her to other Jews as less than, and to believe that she was somehow inherently better than them. Lilly realized that all the time she turned a blind eye to the pain of those around her, she was turning a blind eye to her own Felicia's suffering. And sure, we can point out how others who never supported Hitler were more righteous. That is not a point to be debated. However, how many of us have changed our own racist, prejudiced, and bigoted beliefs because love opened our eyes? It'll sound cute once I cut out all my pauses.
That's right. When you're, no, I'm kidding. No, but it's true. I mean, yeah, you're right. Like when you say someone like Ulla, who always sided with the Jews, was she more righteous? Yeah, that's not the argument. The argument is like, do we try to change ignorance or not? There are some people who are evil and cruel and they don't want to change, but there are many people that just have never put themselves in that situation.
They don't know. It's like explaining white privilege to someone for the first time.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. Like, I'm not privileged. You know what I've been through. But when you fall in love with someone who's a person of color, or you fall in love with someone who's in a marginalized or disadvantaged position, a person who's a Muslim, and you look and you realize how much you get, like how much privilege you receive, and then if you add on the fact that you actually are a racist, right. You actually are prejudiced. I mean, and like I said, I understand Lilly because I was that person. I was very racist. I was very prejudiced. I was very anti-queer.
It's just a good thing you didn't have Twitter back then.
It is a good thing. It is honestly a good thing because you would have found 1,000 things that were atrocious. Like There's all this stuff on Twitter about Caitlin Bennett, the gun girl. She's going around and she's interviewing these people, and she always looks so foolish. And I don't want to defend her, but that was me. Like, people don't understand. If I had a website, that was me. I was going up to people on the streets. I was accosting them. I was not a good person. And I thought I was. I really believed that I was good, but I wasn't. And
right. That's the thing. It's that people don't understand how people can see that their way of thinking is right to them. And I'm like, everybody has their own beliefs, and when you really believe what you're saying, you think they think we're the bad people.
Yeah.
And it's until you educate people and teach them empathy and show them like we're just like you, they don't get it.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And I had one other thing, and I can't remember what I was going to say about it. Whatever. Maybe it'll come to me later. So Lilly took Felicia in her arms and said, "Oh, that's what I was going to say." Now you're on the edge of the seat.
You know what I was going to say? I was like, we're going to be four paragraphs in, and Evan's randomly going to stop and going to say, I knew what I was going to say.
No, I was going to say, because you'll find out later, I think that's why I do things like the podcast. So, like, yes, I want to educate people about queer history, but there's also a part of me that's trying to atone. It's not about forgiveness. It's about atoning for the wrongs that you've done. And Lilly, as you'll see, that's how she spends the rest of her life. She tries to atone for, and I think that's what makes a difference. If you were an asshole, at least spend the rest of your time atoning. Don't spend your rest of your life defensive, like, yeah, okay, I was an asshole, but I've changed now. Well, you're not doing anything to make it right. That's my thing. So Lilly took Felicia in her arms and said, "I will love you even more now." And she did. Felicia told Lilly about the underground and how many of her friends were Jews. Surprise, all those people in your house, they're Jews.
She's like, oh, fuck.
Oh, shit. And all of her friends were constantly like, they're like, yeah, we were really kind of pissed because she was a Nazi. And we're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Initially, the resistance fighters were angry with Felicia. They saw Lilly as a Nazi and naturally worried that Felicia had jeopardized everything. But in time, it became obvious that Lilly's only concern was keeping Felicia safe. She began to accompany on all of Felicia's missions, though the fighter rarely gave Lilly the details in order to protect her. Nevertheless, it was exciting as the women went all around Germany, passing along secret messages and papers and getting Jewish fugitives to safety. Once, Felicia even took Lilly to the restaurant directly across from Hitler's headquarters in downtown Berlin. A Jew and her lesbian lover sat among dozens of SS officers eating dinner and downing beers.
Damn.
Right?
That's adrenaline there.
Yeah, Felicia, definitely the adrenaline junkie. And even her friends were like she got a little too, carried away. Like, she got a little too bold in what she was doing. She was already living on the edge, and now they were just openly like, fuck it, we'll go wherever the fuck we want.
When they were home, things were much less exciting, though still dangerous. Daily bombings leveled the cities as the Aryan people finally began to feel the full effects of the war. Lilly had filed for divorce from her husband, and it came through in October of 1943. Shortly thereafter, he would go missing in action and was never heard from again. Lilly and Felice raised the two youngest boys at home. The oldest boys were away at boarding school for most of this time. Yet all the children loved Felice and would call her Auntie Felice. The youngest recalls how during a certain air raid he fell while running for shelter. He felt Felice scooped him into her arms and carried him to safety. The children may not have quite realized their mother's relationship with her housemate, but they knew Felice loved them just as deeply as their own mother. Together, the two brides talked of how they would raise the youngest children together once the war was over. Damn. When
1944 rolled around, the tide for Germany officially began to turn against the Nazis. Hitler's army suffered grave defeats, and one might think the SS would turn its full attention to winning the war and saving their country. Instead, the hunt for hidden Jews continued, and now it expanded all across Europe. Everywhere the Nazis laid their boots, they rounded up Jews and sent them to the death camps. They also sent many LGBTQ people along with Jehovah's Witnesses and the Roma, also known as travelers, or the slur, and we'll use the slur just to clarify, gypsy, the slur that we used in the Pink Triangle episode, and for that we apologize. By now, several million people had been murdered in the thousands of camps and facilities around Europe. The Jewish resistance was also dwindling in Germany. Things were becoming simply too dangerous, and this was in part due to a traitor amongst their biz. This bitch Oh, we're about to get into this bitch. Ooh. You're going to this is... Go ahead.
Stella Kubler,
Yeah, who fucking...
born Stella Goldschlag, was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Aryan-looking Jew. She was relatively pretty and incredibly fashionable.
She looked like... have you ever seen the Harry Potter movies?
Yes.
She has the same smile as... What's that bitch? That teacher that's Miss... the evil one that makes Terry write on his hand.
I don't remember.
Oh, she has that smile.
I need to watch him again.
Yeah, she has a smile. I cannot remember her name. Whatever. She has the evil smile that you would exactly expect her to have.
A villainous smile.
A villainous smile, yes.
After mass deportations of Jews began in Berlin in 1942, Stella went underground. Yet, in 1943, the Goldschlag family was arrested by the Gestapo and threatened with deportation. According to Stella, she was tortured and forced to betray her heritage. Yet records show she was paid 300 Reichmarks for every Jew she brought to the Gestapo. To put that in perspective, the average factory worker earned 180 Reichmarks a month, and a Volkswagen cost 900 Reichsmarks. So her story is that she went on her way to the camps, and then the Gestapo not only released her, but also blackmailed her by giving her a salary to work for them. It certainly doesn't sound like your typical blackmail story.
Yeah, she's all like, no, you don't understand. I was tortured. I had to work for them. But she's making 300 Reichsmarks.
Right. So she's getting paid. She has a salary.
Yeah, she's getting paid a good amount of money. Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever heard a story where they're like, all right, I'll tell you what, we'll pay you to bring us people, and we aren't going to send you to the camps. And you're like, oh, God, the torture. It's unbearable.
I just had to make my money.
Exactly. And we know by her later life that this was, again, a fucking lie, because it only gets worse. Mm-hmm. In reality, it is most likely that Stella gave the Gestapo an offer they couldn't resist. She was beautiful and she looked Aryan, which allowed them to go easier on her. And in return, she had deep connections with the Jewish underground. The Nazis called Stella blonde poison, and that is what she was. In all the accounts of how many Jews she was able to catch, it ranges from 600 to 3,000. She was wealthy and popular among the SS guards, and she was ruthless in her pursuit of fellow Jews. We see this type of self-hating individual in every group of marginalized people.
Like Chasten Buttigieg.
Exactly. The kind of person who tries so hard to fit in with the very people who hate them. Like Chasten Buttigieg. Despite Stella's devotion to the Nazi party, they still deported her parents and husband to the concentration camps where they all died. So she's like, I had to do it to save my parents. But they deported your parents anyways, and you were still like, okay, but I'm going to bring in some Jews.
Right. She just wanted the money and the notoriety.
Exactly. And Stella responded by simply remarrying another catcher, which is the term that they used for the Jews who lured other Jews to the Gestapo's claws. In all, Stella would continue to self-hate until the day she died. She renounced her Judaism after the war and became an open anti-Semite, finally taking her own life in 1994 after being ostracized by people on every side.
Good. Fuck you, bitch.
Yeah, like
you should have been hung with the fucking soldiers.
Oh, so she went to 10 years of an internment camp. So first of all, the Russians found her guilty, and then she served 10 years of hard labor. And then she came back to Germany
with the other motherfuckers,
and she was sentenced to 10 more years, but they didn't make her serve it. So yeah, she should have been hung. Absolutely. Like, no doubt she should have been hung.
She might not have personally killed anybody, but she's the one who led 600 to 3,000 people to their death.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, that's basically a serial killer.
She betrayed her own people. She got wealthy off of it, and then she spent the rest of her life so bitter that people rejected her. And then she became an anti-Semite. Like, we see that all the time, right? Mm-hmm. We see like queer people that are like the gays for Trump, if you're still a gay for Trump, and they're they hate their own people so much, and they think they're going to get acceptance by hating us so much.
But you just look stupid.
You just look stupid, and those people don't accept you, right? Like the black people that are supporting Trump, they're all still they're still racist. They're still white supremacists. They still hate you, and you think that they're gonna be like, oh, okay, I'm okay with this one.
You're one of us.
They're still gonna fucking kill you at the end, or they're still gonna let you die. They don't give a fuck about you.
No. They don't. And
so she threw herself out a window in 1994. And
that's dramatic.
Yeah. Wow.
Yet in 1944, Stella was at the height of her game, and it was precisely because she began sniffing around Felicia's friends that many in the resistance fled Germany. They begged Felice to come with them, and she made plans to escape. But at the final moment, she chose to stay. It could have been a desire to continue the fight. It could have been the pain of leaving Lilly behind. It was most likely a combination of both reasons. And to be fair, the resistance did think that if any Jew was safe, it must be the woman living with the wife of a Nazi soldier, since details of the divorce were not public and officials still believed Lilly to be married. Whether it was prudent or foolish, Felice stayed. The lovers knew the war couldn't go on forever, and they just needed to hold on a bit longer.
In late August, the two women went out for a day at the lake. It was beautiful and clear and wonderful to unwind and forget about the war for a while. They picnicked, took pictures, enjoyed one another intimately, and then they biked home. Upon entering the house, Felice and Lilly were met by Gestapo officers who promptly arrested the resistance fighter. We don't know for sure if it was Stella who turned her in, but we do know that Stella was like hot on Felice's trail.
Must have been her.
So most likely she gave them some information. They grilled Lilly on what she knew about the underground, but Lilly never told them a thing. Most likely, the Gestapo found it hard to believe that she knew Felice was a Jew, and they never suspected the two women were involved. And remember all the ways that they could get in trouble. I mean, first of all, she's harboring a Jew. She's a woman who's in love with another woman. There's a law that literally says you cannot have relations, a German with a Jew.
Like, yeah, there's like pages of things they were doing wrong.
Everything could be
wrong.
And the Gestapo just lets Lilly go. They just
because she was just a good old German girl.
She's got four Aryan boys. You know, there's no way that she's knew anything about this. That's right. But Lilly was crushed, as were the children, who cried and cried for days. With a broken heart, she wrote in her diary, "Dear God, protect the girl I love above all else. Oh, Felice, my heart stops with pain. I no longer want to live." Lilly visited Felice while she was in the detainment for 2 weeks. She then followed her lover to the way camp, the notorious Theresienstadt. It's pronounced, it's like written like Theresienstadt, but I think it's called Theresienstadt. Where there, Lilly begged to be able to see Felice, but she was denied. On September 4th, 1944, Felice Schragenheim was sent to Auschwitz. Lilly would never see her wife again.
For the next 2 years, Lilly Wust worked tirelessly to find Felice. Along the way, she provided aid to other Jewish women in the underground. She gave assistance whenever she could, and she housed 3 women in her attic.
All who survived the war, by the way, because of Lilly.
Mm-hmm. Even with increased scrutiny from the Gestapo, Lilly drew from Felicia's courage. In 1946, she read a news account of the bodies of 700 dead women found near Mecklenburg. This was a result of the death marches ordered near the end of the war. Once it became apparent that the Allied forces were going to eventually push the Nazis back, Hitler commanded that all the Jews in the camps be murdered. Gassing was increased to 6,000 people a day before abruptly being stopped by Joseph Goebbels.
Goebbels, yeah.
I love how you just assumed I was going to pronounce it wrong.
Sorry.
Then, thousands of prisoners were sent on death marches from one camp to another. Along the way, many would die of exhaustion or would be shot because they couldn't keep up with the group. Historians believed Felicia died in the New Year's Eve death march on December 31st, 1944, which, before we continue, if you haven't seen the Schindler's List yet, I recommended Schindler's List. I recommended it before. I'll recommend it again. It is a horrible movie to watch, but it really brings to light everything we're saying here.
Yeah, it puts into perspective how Jewish people were treated as objects. Like, that's all they were.
They were literally like herding cows to the pasture.
Yeah, it was nothing. There was all filling had been turned off. It is astounding. And what's more astounding is how we can look at an obvious thing in history that wasn't even 100 years ago, like was 80 years ago, and not see the correlations today. You know, it's astounding to me.
And it's terrifying because not only is it happening in the United States, you see nationalism on the rise in India, Poland, and several other countries around the world where people are
Europe,
being
look at what just happened in Europe, you know? Which, by the way, good for Harry and Meghan fucking leaving the royal family. Good for them. Well, not leaving the royal family, but like claiming financial dependency. But yeah, I mean, we see it in every country. Nationalism is on the rise. In our own fucking country, we are just in the throes of fucking white supremacy right now. When Lilly saw the article about the 700 dead women, she finally accepted that Felice may never return, though she stated until her death that she never quite gave up hope. For the next 62 years, Lilly Wust would grieve the death of Felice Schragenheim. She settled down raising her boys and working to support her family. In 1981, she was awarded the Federal Service Cross by Germany for her aid to Jewish fugitives during the war, a much different medal than her first one from Hitler. She was also declared righteous among nations by the Yad Vashem in August of 1985, almost 41 years exactly since her Felice was taken away from her. The following decade, Lilly sold her love story to Australian journalist Erica Fisher, who wrote the best-selling love novel, Emmy and Jaguar, A Love Story, Berlin, 1943. Fisher used Lilly and Felice's pet names for the title. I don't know. I couldn't get much information on where it came from. I couldn't read the book, so I don't know. But Emmy and Jaguar. The book was later adapted into a popular award-winning German film and even earned an Oscar nomination in 1999.
Nearly 60 years later, when giving an interview for a documentary about their love story, Lilly said, "I'm grateful today that it was the way it was, because we two really lived, and Felice, who loves so much, could live a bit longer. How wonderful, and as part of my family, because that's how you want to bring up children. And I had children. We wanted to bring them up together and spend our whole lives together. But those 18 months were a gift I've never forgotten. In my unhappiness, I was happy and thankful to this day."
And it would seem that Felice felt the same way, as she wrote to her sister Irene shortly before her arrest. "In her, I have found someone who belongs completely to me and will stand by me always."
You want to read the last paragraph?
On March 31st, 2006, Lilly Wust died at 92 from complications of old age. On her tombstone was added a memoriam for Felice, who never had a grave. Until her final breath, Lilly would work to keep her wife's memory alive. It is because of this that we know about the incredible bravery of Felice Schragenheim. If you would like to know more about their story, then your recommended resources are the documentary A Love Story Berlin 1942, which is available on YouTube and in our links below, or the book Emmy and Jaguar, A Love Story Berlin 1943 by Erica Fisher. I don't know, I guess because the documentary talks about when they first met and the book talks about when they fell in love. We do want to point out that the book reads more as a novel and thus takes some liberties, but the basic facts are correct. And of course, all of our other references are at the bottom of our script.
There's a lot this time.
There's a lot.
Yeah, that was a very deep, very emotional, beautiful story. Very eye-opening.
Did you come around a little bit?
I came around a little bit because let me tell you, when Evan pitched this idea, I was like, why the fuck would this woman want to date somebody who literally wants to kill everything she believes in?
Yeah.
And then you got to come around to the realization that people can change and realize they're wrong.
Yeah, and Lilly Wust did, and she spent the rest of her life keeping Felice's memory alive, helping Jews recover after the war. People only had, the other Jewish fighters only had good things to say about Lilly later on. They're like, she really came through for us in the end. And so she atoned.
That's why it's always better to educate than to immediately get angry and attack someone.
Exactly. So we hope you enjoy this. It is, again, of course, this was couched right between the Holocaust Remembrance Day, and it was about 2 weeks before Valentine's Day. So,
perfect timing.
That's right. And we're going to be entering Black History Month next. So we'll have a lot of good stuff on there for you guys.
And we're approaching our 100th episode.
Yeah, I know.
So if you have any bombshell ideas, let us know.
Absolutely.
We don't know what we're doing yet. We have an idea board, but I think for our 100th episode,
it's going to be something special.
Yeah. So stay queer.
Don't get a lobotomy.
We love you, our allied hookers.
Oh, succulent sapphis.
And resist the oppressors, our proud homocrats.
Have yourself a sodomy circus and stay wet.
Bye.
Bye.